Alright guys, let's break it down and talk about how we got here and why young adult fiction is just horrible. Let's go. So, where to start? I think I first started noticing this trend about a year ago, but it wasn't really as bad. I was reading Divergent, I think, at the time, and the protagonist Tris was just really getting annoying. She was a strong, independent female character who didn't need no man, and that gets old so quickly. Let's see some vulnerability, honestly. I'm really tired of just these annoying protagonists and the fact that nothing really bad ever happens to them. And while Divergent doesn't fall into all of those, one book that fell into nearly everything that I hate about YA is Kingdom Ash, which was the last book to one of my favorite young adult fantasy series. So it really surprised me that I didn't like it, but after I read it a couple times I realized I was able to pick out all the things that made me absolutely despise this book. And today, we're going to talk about some of them. So, the first thing that we absolutely have to talk about if we're going to talk about young adult fiction and trash young adult fiction is we gotta talk about trilogies and we gotta talk about the bad movies that come along with them. It is a fact of life at this point that if you write a mediocre to decent young adult novel, follow it with two also mediocre to decent young adult novels within the same series, and you have a female protagonist, guess what? You're getting a movie. Young adult book-based movies, and it is the same cycle over and over. First you get the books, then a fan base occurs, eventually the movies are announced and the hype is absolutely over the moon. We have seen this with Eragon, we have seen this with Divergent, we have seen this with The Hunger Games, we have seen this with countless young adult books turned into movies. When the movies come out, it's C and B class actors mixed with a fast-paced plot line to fit hours of world building into a 2-hour movie. A 2-hour movie, guys, think about that, okay? Most books take about half the book to just build the world. Most good young adult books. This can take a few days to read. Just this can take a few days. And you want to fit all of that plus the entire plot of the movie and the character building and absolutely all of that into 2 hours of you time. It's hard, it's rough, and it's a curse from the very beginning. The message. This is something that is really important to me when I'm reading, but that could just be my personal beliefs and what I like and enjoy. When I was going through middle school, which was my prime young adult reading time, and I think it's prime young adult for a lot of people, young adult books had a clear message. Sometimes it was love cures all ills, like in Cassandra Clare's Shadowhunter series. These messages are simple, inspiring, and when I read modern young adult, the stories tend to be entertaining. The message is often missing, however. Now, this is totally a personal thing, but I like learning new things. I like learning life lessons while I'm reading fiction. That's one of the reasons I read it, because it's entertaining, but it's teaching me something, and in a lot of cases, it makes me think, what would I do in this situation if it were me? What kind of moral stance would I take here? And when you read books like The Girl with All the Gifts, that ending will jolt you into thinking, was that the right decision? Did Melanie make the right decision here? I like morally questioning the decisions of the characters in the book. When I read young adult series now, I find them taking the easiest way out possible with the least amount of consequences. There is nothing that is ever put on the line, and there is no hard decisions to make. If I had to choose between burning my favorite book and just putting it back on the shelf, I would put it back on the shelf. That's a no-brainer, you know? And a lot of young adult fiction is like that nowadays. There's no reason to question the morals of the character. You have absolutely no reason to question the character because the character is never given an opportunity to be wrong about something. The suggested age range of Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, which is a very well-known young adult series, is 8 to 9. I I read it in middle school, but you can read it anytime. Just because of some of the themes in the book, people mostly will recommend that kids read it starting at 8 and up. The recommended age range for the Throne of Glass series is 13 and up due to heavy sexual content that appears later in the series, but most of the series fans begin reading at 10 or 11, which is a few years younger. That's pretty common amongst young adult readers. We don't tend to read the age range that is appropriate for the book we're reading. Nature of the books, most readers will finish the series within a year of starting it because, unlike this book, the rest of the books in the series are actually really good. I really enjoyed them, and I was reading them as they were releasing, but I have a friend who ended up reading them in a month. So you're probably, since all of the books are already published now, if you start the series, you will probably finish them in less than a year, even if you are a very slow reader like I am. The later books easily fall into new adult fiction, which is a subgenre that has started appearing in the last few years, and I don't think people are very aware of it yet, or at least younger kids aren't very aware of it because they don't really realize when they're reading it. I would say the difference between young adult and new adult and adult fiction is basically how romance is depicted, but we will get to that later. Young adult is for kids. It's not for teenagers. It's supposed to be for kids because that's what kids like to read. They like the drama, they like a little bit of romance, and they love hot characters, and that's what young adult is. All attractive characters with near to no flaws. That's okay, that's what the genre has become. People enjoy this. Also, tweens will drag their parents into a crappy movie of their favorite book because they're tweens. Likewise, they are much more likely to buy the merchandise and follow the fan pages. It's easy to build a fandom with young people. Adults just don't have the time to be totally engaged in all of these things, unless they're like professional cosplayers, I guess. Without college or jobs to occupy their time. So what's the problem with this? What is wrong with an 11-year-old reading a 13 and up book? What is wrong? How does this, plus the accelerated pace of reading in younger kids, how does that affect young adult series, and why would that affect the books that we're reading? Young adult has become two separate genres now. You have young adult, new adult, and adult. And a lot of times there's a gray line between these series. I remember when A Court of Thorns and Roses first came out, and it was advertised as a young adult book. And then the books that followed were, I don't even know if I would classify them as new adult. They were very explicit. But if we define young adult as 13 and up, then I would define A Court of Thorns and Roses as a fantasy 50 Shades of Grey, honestly. And 13 and up are reading that. 13 and up, the fan bases, 13 and up don't have the same things that they enjoy in fiction as adults do, and as older teens do. So it shows. This brings us to the heart of the issue: young adult versus new adult versus adult. Each subgenre can be told apart by the pace of the story and the depths of the characters, but another thing to consider is how romance is depicted. In young adult, romance is rarely sexual. It is very emotionally rooted. Boy likes girl, boy takes girl on date, girl thinks she's ugly, boy tells her that she's pretty, yada yada yada. This is about how young adult romances go. And a lot of times they're cute, they're fun, they're adorable in some cases. Have you read The Fault in Our Stars? That was adorable. Young adult fiction may hint at a physical relationship, but they almost never show it. It's pretty clean most of the time. New adult is a completely different ballgame, as I have learned reading some new adult books recently. Often love interests are very sexually active, relationships are physical, and these scenes are sometimes shown in detail. There is an element of love to these relationships, but it tends to come on very, very quickly. So like within the first 5 chapters of knowing someone, they are revealed to be mates, or they are bonded in some way. So a lot of these books also will deal with marriage and children, where that's pretty rare in young adult fiction. In new adult, however, this can be either the end game for the couple: get married, have kids, start a family, or it is seen as a hindrance. In young adult, the end game of a relationship can really just be described as a happy ending. The couple ends up together, or maybe if one of the members of the couple is sick, they get cured, they live a long life. It's not really long term necessarily, and it's not thinking of the future, it's just kind of in the now. But again, it's cute, it's fine. Finally, we have adult, my favorite genre as far as these 3 subcategories, I guess. The characters have a much more mature view of love. These relationships tend to be built on tragedy or a long-term friendship. While it is made readily apparent that the relationships are physical and emotional, we hardly are shown either, which I think is interesting about the genre, because a lot of adult books that I've read have a sub-romance plot, and so you see snippets of conversation between 2 people who are love interests for each other, but you never explicitly see what's going on. It's a lot of tension-based romance. The relationship exists often as a side plot, and the 2 characters, to show the 2 characters' worldview, thoughts on marriage, kids, commitment, etc. It's not usually the main point of the story. So it's just a nice little soft cushioning, a nice little decoration, icing on the cake, and I love it. Due to the age of the couples, their members tend to have a lot more on the line and a lot more at risk. They usually also tend to have a much more serious relationship with their partners. However, recently there has been a shift in how romantic relationships are presented in young adult, and the relationships are still shallow and fast-paced, but they have been getting increasingly physical, which is something that I would expect to see more in new adult fiction, and it's almost like new adult fiction is merging back into young adult fiction. It reads as teenagers' version of a romantic fantasy. It's not good. It's not fun to read. Usually our protagonist is about 16 or 17 years old, but this can vary from book to book. She is single and believes that no guy would ever love her, mostly due to her appearance, her dazzling appearance. Within the first few chapters, we are introduced to the guy friend, usually her best friend or some geek or nerd that is adorable or adorkable, but is constantly going to be friend-zoned by her because she just can't for some reason. And he will either find her insanely attractive and be friend-zoned, or find her insanely annoying like we all do. Around the same time, we're going to be introduced to her main love interest, who right off the bat is going to hate her, but thinks she is insanely hot, so he's going to stick around for a bit. The young man is going to be perfect in every way. He's probably going to be a blonde with golden eyes, or even hotter. He will follow her around like a kicked puppy, constantly admiring her, even when she fails at various tasks. She could blow up the world and he would still be in love. Now here is where it gets good. Throughout the story, our hero will fail at various tasks. Despite this, she will be praised for doing it solo. She is shown to be independent and unique, except that she's like everybody else, literally everyone else, okay? Often her peers or superiors will try to put her into a certain category. Mundane, shadow hunter, orange or green, assassin, princess, lady. But no, she's too cool for that, okay? She's too cool to be an erudite. She's too cool to be an abnegation. She's divergent. Our main girl is way too cool for that. She is not about to be categorized, no. Either she simply doesn't fit in, or she is the most powerful person in her category for some reason. Because in young adult books, if you're not the best, you're not special. The other women in her life are either going to be very jealous of her or serious fangirls. They're going to absolutely love her and become her best friend. This is as far as her character will go, in case you were curious. At the core of these empowering females are shallow, annoying little girls. We never get to see them in need because they are either given everything they want, or they are so powerful that nothing can get in their way. As readers, we have become so obsessed with wanting a strong female individual that we can look up to, that we forgot that whole part about that these women would never ever survive in the real world. They would cry. They would cry hard. I mean, like, we have forgotten what a strong woman actually is, guys, and it's kind of mind-blowing that we have gotten this far in fiction, that the authors that are writing these great books have forgotten what a strong woman actually is. She is the one who fails but learns from her failure. She is human and longs for acceptance and love because everyone longs for acceptance and love. She needs her friends. She will have superiors, and she will never be the best in anything because no one ever is. There's always someone better than you, and there should always be someone better than our protagonist. She will never be the best. Being strong is easy when you are the cream of the crop and you are the absolute best naturally at everything, okay? It's hard to be the best when you have to work for it. We should make things difficult for our female protagonists so that they can rise above it. Honestly rise above it, not just because they're born gifted. So what does all this mean? I have brought up a bunch of random topics, and somehow I'm trying to convey to you guys that young adult fiction is dying. And that is because I think it is. I really truly think that young adult fiction is a dying genre unless we as fans of these books start saying things and start reaching out to people in the community to fix some stuff. And I know not everybody likes the same books that I do. That is readily apparent whenever I go on Goodreads. But I think that we could all push for things that we enjoy more in fiction, even though tastes evolve over time. As far as movies go, let's push for better movies. Let's push for movies like Lord of the Rings, total epicness, right? Let's not settle for anything less. Let's push for a valid message in our fiction. Let's push to learn new things as we're reading. Let's throw away this strong, independent female character. We don't need her. We have proven to ourselves that we can be that person on our own. Let's see vulnerability. Let's see hardship. Let's see, let's see them completely fail and get punished for it. Let's see them, not live up to standards and have the whole rock of life thrown on them. Let's not let all of our guys in our books be forgotten or be just these slaves to women. Let's let them have their own individuality and be cool characters. I remember one of my favorite male characters from the Throne of Glass series was Aiden Ashriver. And that was because he was protective, he was fierce, he was awesome, but he was very vulnerable at the same time, and he had so many things going on with him. And I thought, wow, he's one of the most realistic characters in this entire series. Until I got to Kingdom of Ash, and he's abusive now. It was totally out of character. And I think a lot of young adult books now are pushing that men are bad, women are amazing, and no, nobody has to act accordingly. But that's not realistic enough. Realism in books means consequences. Realism in books means hard decisions. Realism in books means some characters are going to be morally gray. And that's okay. Your character doesn't have to be the savior of the world. They're going to have to make bad decisions if you're writing a really good book. So let's push for more of that in fiction. Let's not let young adult books die. Let's get some great characters and some amazing things to read. I don't know about you, but I am so tired of reading the same book over and over. I pick up one book and it is a carbon copy of the next book. Let's have some variety. Let's read different things. Let's promote books that we actually enjoy. When we push for certain things in a genre, we get results. We've seen that over the past few years. We have seen our female characters become more and more feminist, and we've seen authors incorporate less and less problematic things and problematic scenes. We have seen our fiction over the past few years become much, much more liberal. And while I don't think there's anything wrong with that, I think that a lot of bad authors are getting away with mistakes and bad writing styles because they are liberal or feminist, or they fall into the category that everyone wants to see. But we can't let them get away with this. we deserve good books. That's what we're paying for. That's what we go to the bookstore and pay $12 for. We pay for a good story, a well-written story that we will enjoy, that is surprising and new and interesting. So I think that it is only fair that we push for that in young adult. Alright guys, thank you so much for stopping into my little rant. I really do enjoy reading. You're probably not going to believe me after you just watched that, but hopefully you will hit the subscribe button, bell notification, and come back in the future. I really do enjoy chatting with you guys in the comment section and hearing your thoughts whenever I post opinionated videos like this. And if you totally disagree with me, then I'm here for that too, okay? I like having the dialogue and I like having the discussion. So yeah.